Good morning and welcome to the Balancing Act Presents Behind the Mystery as we celebrate Rare Disease Day 2023. Hi, I'm Montel Williams.
And I'm Olga Villaverde. NORD is the official U.S. sponsor of Rare Disease Day, which is celebrated on the last day of February, the rarest day of the year. The goal? To make all of us and the decision makers more aware of rare diseases and their impact they have on patients' lives.
Absolutely. And for the last 10 years, Behind the Mystery has covered over 100 rare diseases. And these are just some of the courageous faces of rare.
On today's show, two foundations who are advocating for cures for devastating diseases. Plus, the women behind the series share their personal reflections.
Behind the Mystery's Rare Disease Day show starts right now.
Noted for their unique black and white stripes, zebras are the symbol within the rare disease community. They serve as a reminder and an educational tool. After all, rare is more prevalent than you may think. There are over 7,000 rare diseases affecting approximately 300 million people worldwide, and between 25 and 30 million Americans, or 1 in 10. It was nearly 30 years ago when Tracy Dixon-Salazar was diagnosed. Let's take a look at Montel's interview with her mom, Tracy.
We're joined today by Dr. Tracy Dixon-Salazar, Executive Director of the Lennox-Gastaut Syndrome Foundation. If she looks familiar, it's because this is her third time and her third appearance on Behind the Mystery, but this is the first time she's been here in studio. So it's so great to finally meet you and have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, ma'am. For those who haven't seen you before, let's tell them a little bit about your background, about your story.
Absolutely. My daughter, Savannah, developed seizures at the age of 2, completely out of the blue. And then that evolved into Lennox-Gastaut Syndrome when she was 5 years old. And it really took us by surprise. And this is what really led me on a 12-year journey where I enrolled in college, got my bachelor's, and then got my PhD in neuroscience. Thank you. Absolutely. And I did a postdoc in neurogenetics. And I just, during this whole journey, I just wanted to be a part of the group of people that were helping to find answers. But back at home, while I was going through this journey, Savannah was still having seizures, hundreds of seizures a day, too many to count. You know, I never really expected this, but during the course of my research, we actually found a treatment when she was 18 years old that really helped her, and it dropped her seizures by a huge number. She's actually going to be 30 this year.
Congratulations.
No one ever thought that she would live this long, and it's just a miracle in many, many ways. And she's sassy and funny and has a great sense of humor.
So now, how long have you worked with the LGS Foundation?
I've been there now for 6 years. I served as the Director of Research and Strategy for 4 years, and I've been Executive Director now for 2 years.
And what have you learned about LGS in the last, say, 5 years?
The science has gone so fast in the last 5 years. We've learned so much. We used to think LGS was too complicated to study, but now we know that it's a disease that starts as one thing and turns into something else. It starts as seizures, and those seizures are happening when the brain is developing, and then it takes over brain development to create abnormal wiring. And once they have the abnormal wiring, which you can see on the EEG test, every kid with LGS has this abnormal wiring, they don't learn anymore. And this often leads then to severe intellectual disability when they become adults, if they live that long, because they're having so many horrible seizures. They also develop sleep problems, behavioral problems, problems with memory, problems with feeding, problems with motor movements. It's really a very horrible disease that impacts these kids at the very beginning of their lives.
And there is no cure, but your foundation is doing quite a bit to change that, right?
We are. We're working really hard. The first thing we do is we bring families in and let them know they have a community of support. We started our Finding the Cures Together program, and we start with our newly diagnosed families, where we bring them in and let them know that nobody has to walk this journey alone. Nobody should walk it alone. And from there, we mobilize and educate our community, and then we bring in scientists and clinicians. And we recently hosted our patient-focused drug development meeting, where we relayed to scientists and the FDA what it's like living with this disease and how we would prioritize the issues we're having. And that's something only patients should be weighing in on. And then from there, we brought together our patient research collaborative network, where we work together with scientists to actually find the cures. And together, we're actually funding now our Learn from Every Patient database. Everyone in the space really has our data except us. So the government has it, the hospitals have it, the researchers have it, but we as the families don't have it. So we're working with our collaborative research network to form this Learn from Every Patient database.
And this is what you call your patient-led research program, right?
Exactly, and patient-led research is so important because it puts the patient at the center of research. There's certain things we as patient families should be weighing in on, and it's what it's like living with the disease, and what are the issues we're facing, and how we prioritize these issues. And in the past, it's really been the medical infrastructure, it's been doctors that have decided that for us, and it's been companies that are making therapies that have decided that for us. And treatments are made at us or for us instead of with us, and we don't want that anymore. Patient-led research puts the patient in an equal seat at the table with the doctors and the researchers so that we can advance things forward. And this is how we're going to make changes. And so if we want to change things, I think bringing the patient voice in is the only way we're going to do it.
This being your third visit to Behind the Mysteries, what has that done for getting the word out to other patients and other families?
It's actually been really incredible for our foundation. We've actually now had 66 families that have found us. And these are only the ones that have come in through our channels and have actually checked the box to say that it was through the segment that they saw on TV. When I think about the things that keep me up at night, it's the families that are walking this journey alone. There was no LGS Foundation when we started this. And I remember the first time I met a mom, and then I became supported and empowered and educated. And that really led me on my journey. And that's what we're trying to do now. And so the families that have found us, I mean, I can't put a number on how valuable that is, but they're not walking it alone anymore.
And if people wanted to get more information, go ahead and give them the stats. Let them know where to go.
Absolutely. They can go to lgsfoundation.org and they can learn more about all the programs that we're working on.
That's great. Well, look, thank you so much for being here and being in studio this time.
Thank you.
Absolutely, for sure. And of course, if you want more information, you can always go to our website, thebalancingAct.com.
When we come back, a foundation that honors its founder in a big way. But first, let's hear from the co-founder of Behind the Mystery.
Every year, we get to highlight Rare Disease Day on Behind the Mystery. And what an honor to be able to really look at, listen to, and hear people that are dealing with rare diseases and celebrate them.
It causes inflammation in the skin and other areas of the body, triggering the immune system to make too much collagen.
And as a result, patches of tight and hard skin can develop, and in most serious cases, causes damage to the heart, the lungs, the digestive system, and sometimes with lethal consequences.
Today, 3 perspectives to help us understand more about the disease and its impact. Let's go behind the mystery of scleroderma.
I was in college doing a history final, and I specifically remember turning the test in, and I was in tears because my hands hurt so bad.
Scleroderma literally means hardening of the skin. It is an autoimmune disease and also considered a connective tissue rheumatologic disease. The 2 major subtypes are localized versus systemic. And localized scleroderma really just affects the skin. The systemic form, which we now refer to really as systemic sclerosis or SSC, they develop not only skin involvement but other internal organ involvement as well. What makes scleroderma so challenging to treat is that it is an extremely heterogeneous disease. Every patient is different, every patient is unique in terms of how they present initially and their changes over time.
It was about 10 years ago, and I just started my freshman year at Sacramento State when I started to realize that my hands were a little off. I went home one weekend, and that's when my mom noticed that my knuckles were really swollen, and I had told her about how my fingers started turning blue whenever it was really cold. And she told me that we have Raynaud's in our family. However, we knew something else was wrong because at that point my hands started to stiffen up, the mobility in them was getting less, my wrists started to hurt, I had dry skin on my arms and in my scalp. We went and did a full blood panel. The blood panel showed that I have an antibody related to scleroderma, and so I was referred to a rheumatologist for further testing.
So the major complications in scleroderma, we think of fibrosis or scarring of the heart, so it's not able to pump as well. Interstitial lung disease is a lot more common than cardiac involvement and is actually the #1 cause of mortality in patients with systemic sclerosis. Pulmonary arterial hypertension is also a major cause of death and can lead to heart failure. Scleroderma renal crisis can lead to dialysis dependence, and it can lead to need for a kidney transplant. It can also affect the blood vessels, so this manifests typically as Raynaud's phenomenon. And then finally, in terms of gastrointestinal involvement, patients are unable to move food forward, and this can lead to malabsorption, so they become very malnourished. So some of the most debilitating complications of scleroderma have to do with musculoskeletal problems. Because of the tightening of the skin, patients often will develop contractures of their hands. Digital ulcers are also on the fingertips that can cause a lot of pain for patients. They may suffer from swollen, painful joints, weakness, and difficulty swallowing, all related to musculoskeletal problems. So there's no cure for scleroderma, and we're in major need for further research to find a cure.
After I was diagnosed with the limited sclerosis scleroderma, I wasn't sure what was to come in the future. I didn't know if there would ever be a cure. At that point, I just accepted that my life was over.
Scleroderma patient activist Sharon Monsky founded the Scleroderma Research Foundation in 1987.
As a teenager, Sharon had been a competitive figure skater. She received an MBA from Stanford University and worked as a management consultant before being diagnosed with the disease in 1982.
And although Sharon passed away from complications of the disease in 2002, her vision lives on today.
Sharon and I were college roommates. I adored her. She was so smart. When Sharon created the Scleroderma Research Foundation, I joined the board and have been on the board ever since. From the very beginning, Sharon's mission was to fund research that would find a cure for scleroderma. That was it.
We remain focused in our commitment to cutting-edge medical research, public education, and raising the funds necessary to wipe out scleroderma.
When we return, how the Scleroderma Research Foundation is devoting every possible resource to solve the mysteries of this complex and sometimes fatal disease.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. The mission of the Scleroderma Research Foundation is to fund and facilitate the most promising, highest quality research,
as well as recruiting top-tier investigators from around the world to help understand the causes, discover new treatments, and ultimately cure the disease.
One of the things that was so important for Sharon with funding this research was to find what was the cause of this disease as well as advanced treatments for this so that people didn't have to suffer in the way that she was. Our scientific advisory board recruits experts in all different fields like rheumatology, immunology, genetics, fibrosis. Because of the many different forms that scleroderma can take, it's so critical to have experts in all these different areas. And that, I think, is one of the most amazing things that differentiates us from all other foundations for scleroderma. So the Scleroderma Research Foundation is the founder of a project called CONQUER. What's so interesting about this, it's the first time ever that we've been able to create a registry that goes across the country, and that way we're able to study scleroderma patients and what happens over a length of time. Scleroderma Research Foundation is also the nonprofit partner for the registry called GRASP. So what GRASP does is study why scleroderma patients that are from the African American community are hit so much harder and the disease is more severe.
I think one of the most exciting things that is supported by the Scleroderma Research Foundation is a new adaptive clinical trials platform called Conquest. And what this can do is this can accelerate the development and approval of the most effective therapies for the treatment of scleroderma.
When I was diagnosed, it was 5 days before I turned 20. And at that point in my life, I was not ready to accept the fact that I had scleroderma. I still wanted that normal college lifestyle. However, my symptoms continued to get worse. Everyday things started to become harder, like holding a fork or even cutting my food up. I was originally at Sac State for athletic training. However, there was no way I was going to be able to tape up an ankle when I can't hold a pencil myself. It was after about a year and a half that I decided that it was time that scleroderma does not define who I am. And that is when I started my management plan and started to reach out to the people around me for support.
Sharon and I were brainstorming about how could we do an event that would raise money. So we thought, let's do an event called Cool Comedy Hot Cuisine. And that has been a fundraiser for the Scleroderma Research Foundation for all these years, to raise awareness and to raise money to fund cutting-edge research. I mean, so many people have done the event year after year, and part of it, I think, is because they fell in love with Sharon. And then, of course, they fell in love with Bob. Bob Saget was one of the comedians early on and did the event, and of course was wonderful. But then a year later, his sister was diagnosed with scleroderma. So Bob became a member of the board of Scleroderma Research Foundation, and of course from then on was the MC and helped to drive this event for many, many years. The heartfelt feelings that happen in that room, I think, are what help us to raise money. People knowing that it's so critical to find a cure for this disease.
Needing a community when I was first diagnosed, my mom reached out to the Scleroderma Research Foundation. Working the Cool Comedy Hot Cuisine events is where I really started to find a community of people who not only supported me, but other patients with scleroderma. The last 8 years of my scleroderma journey have not been easy. But it led me to a place where I have a job that I'm passionate about. I'm planning a wedding with the man who supports me no matter what. And I'm part of a foundation that continues to search for a cure for scleroderma.
For resources and information on scleroderma, visit the Scleroderma Research Foundation at srfcure.org.
And of course, you can always visit our website, thebalancingAct.com, if you want more information. We'll be back right after this.
As we celebrate Rare Disease Day, we've been sharing the impact rare stories have had on those working behind the scenes on Behind the Mystery.
And let's hear from our marketing manager, Claire McCabe.
Our social media platforms serve as a space for rare disease people to connect with others, and it's really a place where we give the voiceless a voice. I want to fight with these people, and there's nothing more I love than helping people and impacting people's lives.
Rare Disease Day is the most important day in the rare disease community. Being able to raise awareness about rare diseases to a general population who may not know about them is something that we're really proud of. And 2023 is going to be a big year for Behind the Mystery. We are going to be discussing scleroderma, Lennox-Gastaut Syndrome, Wilson disease, ATTR amyloidosis, short bowel syndrome, and Gaucher disease. And there's many more to come after that.
By the way, that was the senior producer of our Rare Disease show. Thank you, Brittany, for all the work you do.
Absolutely. We love you, Brittany. Thank you.
She works so hard. And thank you so much for tuning into Behind the Mystery as we celebrate Rare Disease Day 2023. Montel, before we leave, just out of curiosity, what have you enjoyed the most with Behind the Mystery?
Well, you know, as a person who has a rare disease, you know, I'm so happy the fact that we've been able to put some faces to others who are similarly afflicted.
That's right, and create awareness.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We've got many more rare stories to share this year. For a full list of rare diseases we've covered, head to thebalancingAct.com.
We'll see you next time. Remember, take care of yourself and love that family of yours.